There's a hugely important Scottish town that sits between a gorgeous Highland glen and a stunning lowland strath. And yet, if I told you that it was the location for critical trade, a clan massacre, Jacobite atrocities, Scotland's oldest library, Scotland's oldest distillery, a World War II escape, and the overthrow of more Scottish kings than anywhere else in the country I can think of, would you know I was talking about Crieff? If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen. And if you enjoy this video, then like it, share it, and watch the next one. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Now, you might have heard of the name of this town, but with a population of less than 8,000 people, you probably thought that nothing much had ever happened here over the years. Oh, how wrong you'd be. They tell me the name Crieff comes from Crieff, the Gaelic for tree. Now that suggests that the Gaels had taken over what was originally Pictish territory before the town was named. More to the point, why was this tree so important? Was it for punishment? Was it ceremonial? Was it a gathering place? Crieff's definitely a place where peoples meet. It's a border town where Highlanders, like this chap, met Lowlanders like me. And that Highland-Lowland border has defined everything that followed. A local artist and an old pal of mine, David Campbell, designed the history timeline in the Crieff and Strathearn Museum, and it's perfect as a place to tell you about how this border created a small town whose place in Scottish history outweighs its size. David started with the Bronze Age barrows, crannogs and prehistoric ceremonial circles that skirt what's now Crieff. Then, in the 1st century, the Roman legions. As they came north, that line of Highland mountains and glens stopped their progress. So they built a series of forts called the Gask Ridge. This is the reason that 3 miles south of here, the Romans built a road and fort at Strathearn and the best preserved Roman fort at Ardagh. As legionaries stood in their furthest outposts, they would have looked north beyond the edge of the known world to where we are today. When the Romans left, the missionaries ventured into these glens with St Kessig and St Fillan. But I want to start by telling you how its strategic location meant 3 kings faced fateful turning points in Scotland's history either side of this town. Now, David included the hill fort at Dundurn to the west. That was crucial in the formation of Scotland for 2 reasons. The Scots at Dalriada came east and besieged the local Picts here in 683 AD, apparently in retaliation for Picts attacking Dunnad and Argyll the same year. So this is an east-west frontier as well as a north-south one. But 200 years later, that hill fort at Dundurn was also a base for King Giric. He'd taken the throne from one of Kenneth MacAlpin's sons, we think by Now, that could have put an end to Scotland's first royal dynasty. But when the next generation of MacAlpins grew to maturity, Giric faced payback. And it was at Dundurn in 889 AD when Giric met his maker. The MacAlpin dynasty reclaimed the throne, and 16 years later, the destiny of Scotland was sealed at Scone by Constantine II. Now, don't worry, I'll explain all that in a series that I'm starting next week called The Bloody Birth of Scotland. It'll be brilliant. But even after Scotland's birth, the bloodletting didn't stop. Just west of Crieff is a place called Monzievaird, where 2 cousins met in battle, and it changed Scotland. And yet you probably never heard of it. The Celtic law of tanistry was still in operation. When a king died, it wasn't the eldest son who succeeded, but one of a number of possible descendants of Kenneth MacAlpin chosen from the wider royal family. You can imagine the squabbles. One was between Kenneth III and his cousin Malcolm, who thought that he should have been chosen as king. The two sides met at Monzievaird. By the end of it, both Kenneth and his son were dead, and Malcolm was the new king. Here's the thing. It was Malcolm II who started introducing primogeniture when the eldest son would succeed. And it was only the eldest sons of Malcolm's descent. Apart from a little blip with Macbeth and later Donald III, that's essentially what happened from that time through to this. It gave us the Canmore dynasty. Malcolm Canmore, David I, William the Lion, and Alexander I, II, and III. In fact, it's because the third Alexander didn't have an eldest son that the whole invasion of Edward Longshanks sparked off Anglo-Scottish wars. William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, Stirling Bridge, Bannockburn can all be traced to a battle between cousins on the outskirts of Crieff in 1005 AD. Of course, Robert the Bruce faced his own troubles on the other side of town. Now, we can see on the timeline that after having himself crowned at Scone, a unique event in Scottish history itself that I'm going to make a video about, his camp was sneakily attacked by the English in the middle of the night at Methven. Bruce was captured. Now, the only reason he didn't die a horrible traitor's death then was because a knight on the English side, with divided loyalties, let him escape. He and the survivors fled west past here in Dundurn, and the rest is history. And a Netflix movie called Outlaw King. But the point is, there are few places in Scotland that have seen so many turning points in Scottish royal fortunes. Whilst we're here, it's worth giving you a sneak preview to that video about Scottish royal inaugurations. A key role was to lead the king to be seated in the Stone of Destiny, and leading that procession was the Earl of Strathearn. The Earls of Strathearn were key players in our ancient kingdom, and in 1218 they established a market here in Crieff. Now, don't forget, this market's in a key strategic location in that Highland borderline. You can imagine how the town grew. 500 years from now, it's going to be more important still. But before that, we've got some clan feuds. Now, I'll cover the feud between the MacNabs and the MacNeishes in a wee extra video for my Patreon members right now. Let me tell you about 1490. With the Drummonds and the Murrays. The trouble started when James IV replaced the Murrays of Tullibardine as the local stewards and gave the honour and rent collection rights to John Lord Drummond. Now, to be fair, James III had taken it from him to give it to the Murrays. I'm just saying, there'd been a bit of bad blood. One of the first things that Drummond did was to evict some Murrays from lands that they'd held historically. And you can imagine, all hell broke loose. Now, the abbot of Inchaffrey Abbey was a Murray, and he had the job of getting some rent from the Drummonds on Abbey land. Well, the Murrays took up that job with an enthusiasm that might be described as brutality if you were Lord Drummond. And the cycle of retaliation spiralled. So on the 21st of October 1490, at the head of a force of Drummonds, Lord Drummond's son, Sir David, headed to Ochtertyre to evict the Murrays. Well, Murray of Ochtertyre got wind of it, and he gathered his own men, and the two groups faced each other around Ochtertyre, just west of the town. When Drummond allies arrived in support, the Murrays were driven north, eventually making a last stand on a hill near Monzievaird Kirk. What survivors there were broke and fled back towards Ochtertyre to lick their wounds. The Drummond men were heading home in triumph when a fly dropped into the ointment. A Campbell. Duncan Campbell of Dunstafnage arrived with some of his followers. Now, his relatives had been murdered by some Murrays and he wanted to see blood. So the combined Drummond-Campbell force headed back to hunt down the Murrays that were left. Around 20 Murray men who'd survived took refuge in the Monzievaird kirk near the shores of Loch Monzievaird. As the Drummonds and Campbells scoured the area, an impulsive Murray archer gave away their hiding place by shooting an arrow from the church window, killing a Drummond outside. Oh, the Drummonds and Campbells went mental. They heaped brushwood against the church and set that and its thatched heather roof alight. Onlookers said that as the trapped Murrays burned, above the screams of dying could be heard the skirl of a lone bagpiper playing amid the inferno. As the gasps of the dying faded, only the pipes could be heard, till they were heard no more. King James IV, who saw bloody private feuds as a threat to royal authority, arrested both Sir David Drummond and Duncan Campbell of Dunstafnage. He wanted to show that no matter how high-born, those who indulged in personal grievance and carnage would pay. And both were hanged for their role in the massacre, and that put an end to the feud. Monzievaird Church is long gone, and on the site stands a Murray of Ochtertyre mausoleum. But they tell me that if you pass that way as an autumn night draws in, you can still hear the ghostly sound of the pipes lamenting the Murray loss. The 17th century brought death to Crieff that was beyond the hands of men. In 1645, the Great Plague hit Strathearn with a vengeance. The epidemic was so severe that the Scottish Parliament ordered that public contributions be taken up for the benefit of the plague-stricken in the parishes of Crieff, Monzievaird and Comrie, and grain from Perth stores were sent to feed the suffering townsfolk. Local lore says that victims are buried in plague mounds all around the town. Crieff wasn't spared from 17th century witch hunts either. Kate McNiven was the most famous so-called Witch of Monnie. Apparently, unexplained misfortunes hit the household of the laird that she worked for, so young Kate was accused of sorcery and dragged up the rocky crag above Crieff that we call the Knock, and there she was strangled at the stake and burned. The last witch execution in the area. Now, if you feel like you need a bit of cheering up after that and you live near Crieff, why not come along to my live comedy show, Scotland Made the World? That's right, I'll be in the Strathearn Arts Centre on the 21st of March with Scottish history and comedy. Of course, I've got shows all over Scotland and across Canada in 2026. So, whether Mother Scotia or from Cape Breton all the way to Vancouver Island, if you fancy a laugh and some Scottish history, that's the place to be. Click the link in the description or go to www.brucefummey.co.uk. You'll be glad to know that in the second half of the 17th century, things got cheerier. The opening of Scotland's first ever public lending library, right next door to where the Romans had stood 1600 years before. Now, time's short, so if you want to know about that library of Inner Peffray, then I'll include the video in a playlist at the end. But in 1672, there was even more to cheer the town when an Act of Parliament gave the Duke of Perth permission to hold an annual cattle tryst. Again, Crieff's strategic location in the Highland line made it perfect, as every coup from Caithness to the Outer Hebrides found their way through this, the main hub for cattle heading for southern market. Each autumn, the grass turned from green to black as more than 30,000 cattle covered the fields. At the 1714 Michaelmas tryst, there was a regular visitor with some irregular behaviour. As night fell, a Highland cattleman led a group of about 30 men into town. A piper struck up a tune, and the Highlanders formed around the market cross. They drew their swords, rang the town bell, raised their quaichs filled with brandy from a smuggled keg, and they drank a toast to His Majesty King James the Eighth, the King o'er the water. Oh, this was treasonous Jacobite sedition. But by the time the government troops mustered and rushed to the square, Rob Roy and his Highlanders had vanished into the shadows. But they'd left a warning. This was a prelude to the coming 1715 Jacobite rising. Indeed, when that rising came, Crieff faced more than its fair share of trouble. After the inconclusive Battle of Sheriff Muir, Jacobite leaders denied supplies to government troops by burning Crieff and the surrounding villages of Strathearn to the ground. I made a video about that, and I'll include that in the playlist of related videos at the end. But there was more shenanigans from the Jacobites in Crieff 30 years later. Anyone that watches this channel will know that Bonnie Prince Charlie and his generals made 3 fateful decisions in that whole adventure. In Edinburgh, they decided to cross the border to England. At Derby, they decided to turn back. And the 3rd fateful decision was made here in Crieff on the 2nd of February 1746. How much of Scotland could they reasonably hold? That was the decision they had to make in the Drummond Arms across the road from here. This war council was even more acrimonious than the famous one at Derby. Charles would rather stand and fight than yield the lowlands. Most of his clan chiefs urged a strategic withdrawal across that Highland line that was now so near. Voices were raised and tempers flared. Cowardice, disloyalty, foolhardy naivety. Drinks helped fuel the fire. One account says that the session was marked by disappointment and whisky. Lord George Murray and the clan chiefs overruled Charles. The Jacobite army would quit central Scotland and march north to Inverness. And you know what happened next. Like much of Scotland, the 18th century saw Crieff folks involved in weaving, perfectly exemplified by a young Peter MacDonald on the timeline there. Now, if you don't know, he's a proper tartan history expert and a friend of the channel. I'll add a video to the playlist at the end of when an older version of Peter and I chatted about tartans. The countryside north of Crieff suffered during the clearances, with hundreds leaving Glenquaich for Canada. But one of the big impacts in the 18th and 19th centuries was water. Centuries from clan battles, the Drummonds and the Murrays delivered firsts. That groundbreaking library was gifted by David Drummond, 3rd Lord Madarty. And from the other side of that ancient massacre, in 1772, a reforming, improving, Enlightenment laird, Sir Patrick Murray of Ochtertyre, delivered Crieff another innovation: piped water. In 1772, with the help of Loch Turret and gravity, he brought the town a water piping system to supply free, clean water. Glasgow didn't have piped water. Edinburgh didn't have piped water. The idea that a tiny provincial town would have it was unheard of. But Crieff had piped water. But the water from Loch Turret provided another first, Ushgabea, because Loch Turret also supplies water to Glen Turret Distillery, and since 1763 they've been legally transferring it into the Water of Life, since before any other remaining distillery in Scotland. But there's more. The Crieff hydropathic establishment Aye, the Victorian craze for water therapy cures and restorative spa bath treatments arrived in the Scottish baronial style, complete with towers and manicured lawns. The hydro was built and Crieff was a spa town. If only the Romans had hung around, they would have loved it. Mark Twain did when he visited in 1873. But I promised you a World War II escape before we were finished. In 1941, Cultibragan prisoner of war camp was built at Comrie. Now, one of the German prisoners was called Heinrich Steinmeier. Now, Heinrich Steinmeier was a young Waffen SS soldier. I'm not here to judge, but after the war, he probably had some gaps in his CV. But when some local kids got chatting to him over the camp fence, it turns out he'd never seen a movie. Like a film. Gary Cooper, James Cagney, the Marx Brothers. If you're shocked, then so were the kids. And okay, it was the 1940s, and not everyone had seen a moving picture, but it was 50 years since the Lumiere brothers had shown a moving picture to French paying customers in Paris. I mean, it didn't help them defend against Stuka dive bombers. Just saying. Anyway, the kids felt sorry for the guy, so they arranged to come back, dressed him in a school uniform, broke him out of the camp, brought him to his first moving picture, and then took him back to the camp where he lived out the war. In 2016, to the surprise of the local community, a legacy of £384,000 was left to the people of Comrie by an ex-Waffen SS soldier because of the humanity showed to him by the Scottish people when he lived here in Strathearn. A lot's happened in and around Crieff in the last couple of thousand years. You can come here and visit some of the other rooms in the Crieff and Strathearn Museum to find out. Let me know in the comment section if you like this format and what towns you'd like me to peek into. I've made a playlist with all the related videos that I mentioned during this one, and that playlist is coming up on screen now. I hope to see you at one of my comedy shows here in Crieff or around the world. I mean, Dochas can be Lama alive. Cherry and Drasta.